We are live. We are live. We are live. I'm Dr. Frita. Welcome to Dr. Frita Live, where we talk about the latest trending medical headlines and celebrity health news. And we've had some doozies over this past week. I'm not even kidding. We're going to talk about one that, this one just really, it hits my heart so hard. And it's the Celeste Rivas Hernandez case. Her autopsy report has been revealed. David D4VD, David Anthony Burke, the singer who sings about romantic homicide and sings songs with Celeste. And they initially had a relationship when she was as young as 11. And certainly, at least when she was as young as 12, she started communicating with him while he was an adult at that time, 18. And now he has been arrested and charged with first degree taking of her life. And so this will also be a continuation of the age gap conversation. Is she fast or was she groomed? Plus, we'll go into details about her autopsy report, toxicology report, and I'll really talk about how some of the substances that were initially found in her toxicology report can affect a minor, their brain, their development. And so we're going to spend some time talking about Celeste and D4VD and getting your input into that. And we'll talk about RFK Jr. He's another one who was in the headlines trending. Oh my goodness. And we're going to talk about him wanting to overturn the USPS, U.S. Preventive Services Task Force. This is the task force that's responsible for helping to give evidence-based medical recommendations on things like colonoscopies, those screenings, mammograms, prostate screenings, and what this USPS, what they say really has a lot of weight into whether or not your insurance companies will cover your health screenings. And so it does affect you directly. So we'll talk about what RFK Jr. wants to do. Plus, I'll hit on a few other ways he was in the headlines. He had the Ways and Means hearing. He had comments about ADHD, about all Black children needing to go to wellness farms to be reparented. I'm not exaggerating. So we'll talk some more about RFK Jr. and his health knowledge or lack thereof and how it could really be affecting each of us. And then we'll move on to talk about a Florida story. Oh my goodness, do I have any upbeat stories today? I don't know. There was a major IVF mix-up, an in vitro fertilization mix-up, where they gave parents the wrong baby. A mother doing IVF was given the embryo of another family, and they had a baby who looks nothing like them genetically. And it's leaving everyone asking, how did that happen? So we'll talk about that story. And then, well, we'll try to be a little light with myth versus fact. Y'all know that's my favorite game. And we'll talk about Carrie Ann Inaba, one of the judges of Dancing with the Stars. And she is very open about her invisible disability, which is the autoimmune condition, Sjogren's disease. And so we'll clear up some myths about Sjogren's disease. And then we'll talk about autoimmune diseases at large and really how it feels to have a disability that is not obvious, how you move about the world. And then we'll get into our second dose of trending medical topics and headlines. And we will talk about, yes, Donald Trump, because there was a big shakeup in the White House where they're talking about potentially fast tracking the FDA approval of some psychedelic medications for depression. And really the whole point of this conversation will be the importance of having proper steps in FDA approval and not abusing power. And so we'll talk about all of these things, but first, please do me a big one and go ahead and give us a like, give us a subscribe, because we have an evidence-based medical show. This is Dr. Frita Live. Let's get this thing started. Hello. I'm Dr. Frita. This is Dr. Frita Live. Thank you so much for joining us this morning as we talk about the latest trending medical headlines and celebrity health news. Let's go ahead and jump right into this as you like and subscribe to the channel. You know I'm not doing this alone. To my co-host and office manager, Sjogren, would you please come to the front of the stage? How are you doing, Sjogren?
Yeah, Frita. Good. How are you?
Doing all right. I feel like I'm in a whirlwind, a little bit jet lagged. You know, I had my dialysis conference in Scottsdale, Arizona this past week. And in Scottsdale, they are 3 hours behind us here in the Atlanta area. And so I'm an early riser anyway, like 5:30, 6 o'clock a.m., which meant I was waking up at 2:30 a.m. there, but still staying up for the whole day. And so just all kinds of things. But I will say I had a pretty neat experience. As soon as I got back, we had, basketball tournament, surprise, and my son Gregory did pretty well. He did what he needed to do out there. But here's what was really neat to me. When I walked in, someone was like, "Doctor," and I looked, and I'm like, I didn't know this person, but I'm like, well, I'm just trying to pick up his voice and see if I knew him. And he's like, "I've been following you for years." So I didn't know him. I didn't meet him. But he was just talking about how he's, he shares the videos, and so then, I was hanging out with him at the tournament, and just so happened to see someone who coaches basketball and all of that. But met some other people who also subscribe. And so it's just really neat when I'm out in real life and people are picking up on the videos, appreciating the evidence-based medicine, appreciating the advocacy. It just feels good. It feels good. So that was a big highlight for my weekend. Let's see. Did you have some relaxation, some T-ball? What'd y'all get into?
Got into some T-ball on Saturday. It was actually pretty fun.
Good.
Even though the little one, allergies are a bugger, so he had a fever like the night before, like 103. So with medication and everything, he felt okay the morning of. So he went out there and participated.
Okay.
And whatnot. But he's better.
He's doing better now.
Good.
I'm telling you, these allergies, because they mess with both of my youngest two. Even Avery, who usually doesn't react too poorly, was having all kinds of headaches and runny nose. And yeah, the allergies can really get you down and make you feel like you just are down and out. So it's really important to use nasal saline, use certain over-the-counter medications. Always consult with your doctor, of course, but the nasal saline, that's one thing that's actually not a medication that clears the mucus and the pollen and the dander out of your nostrils. Remember, nose to toes, get yourself some nasal saline, just nasal salt water over the counter. You aim in the nostril toward the outside corner of the same eye, and you just lean over the sink and you irrigate and you irrigate and you irrigate and you clear it out. And then if you use something like a nasal steroid, like a Flonase, use that after you've already cleared out the mucus and the pollen. It's highly effective. And if you use no medication, still just doing those nasal rinses several times a day can be helpful. I'll consult with your doctor, but don't let these allergy season, don't let it get you now. And, allergies don't bother me. I always feel a little bit of guilt when my kids are around here with puffy eyes, itching and taking all kinds of stuff. I'd be sitting here like this. I'm like, I got advice. I don't have allergies, but I got advice. So I hope your little one keeps doing better. All right. You know who else I hope does better? All of us, because the head of Health and Human Services, RFK Jr., is talking about overthrowing the United States Preventive Services Task Force and replacing them with his own people. But first, who's in the chat? Who's the first person here?
First, let me address Mr. B. I'm sorry. So it sounds a little staticky. Working with a new system today, so I do apologize. Not you, Dr. Frita. Problem on my end.
On your end, okay.
Yeah,
all right.
You're okay. First in the chat,
let us know though. But yeah.
First in the chat is Yolanda.
Hi, Yolanda.
She was waiting to start, so thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
And then to our mid, checking in, Dr. Frita. Miss Deidre.
Hi, Miss Deidre.
Peace Oasis.
Hi, Peace Oasis. I always have to do this when I say Peace Oasis.
Miss Deidre is here.
Hello.
And shout out to Miss Andrea.
Okay, I appreciate you, members. And this is our day. If you are one of the chief resident members, then we have our members only live Q&A immediately following this live. Please get your questions together. I want to hear them. Y'all know I love answering questions. In the live Q&A, I don't do all the talking and headlines and all of that. I just listen to your questions about yourself. Listen, y'all can slip some questions in about loved ones as well. Because for those of you who are new to me, I am Dr. Frita. I'm a medical doctor. I have been quadruple board certified. I am board certified in nephrology, meaning I'm a kidney and high blood pressure doctor. I'm also board certified in internal medicine. I'm board certified in obesity medicine. And after I completed my dual internal medicine pediatrics residency at Georgetown, I earned my board certification in pediatrics. And so I love to learn a lot about a lot. I continue my medical education. I read medical journals every single day. Every day, no exaggeration. And so one of my greatest loves is getting a chance to share that medical information with you in a way that's easy to understand. So if you become a member, come on, members, especially at that chief resident level, you get a chance every month to join me for a members only live Q&A. where you have full access to ask me your questions, and I give you medical information. All right. And so for our members, make sure you check in your community tab and go ahead so you can join us for the members only live right after this live. And if you're not a member, it's not too late. Click the link in the description, go to my one-stop shop, drfrita.com. You can join, and you can come join us today for our members only live Q&A. All right, Sjogren, let's go ahead and get this thing started by talking about RFK Jr. First of all,
we do have a special guest waiting in the wings.
You know what? Well, let's go ahead and let's start talking about that topic that I already mentioned that we were going to have a continuation of. Is she fast or was she groomed? Okay, I'm really excited about this guest. For those of you who joined us, you know, we had a special live, Is She Fast or Is She Groomed? And it really was, I was motivated to do that live based on Brandy's book, Phases, where she shared in her chapter, Brokenhearted, that when Brandy was only 15 years old, she met Wanye Morris of Boys to Men. He was 21 years old at the time that she met him. And then they actually had a romantically, physically intimate relationship, okay, by the time she was 16 years old. In the chapter, she talks about how even though, you know, she felt like she was mature at the time, as she goes back, she realizes that she was manipulated. And she states in the book very clearly, I was a child, he was an adult. I was shocked after that because so many people gave so much feedback. And if y'all watched that special, you saw where they were saying, well, she was fast. Well, she was grown. Well, you know, I heard she has a huge body count and he was a boy also. And so we, you know, for that show, we had PhD psychologist, Dr. Ebony, who weighed in. We had pop culture icon content creator, the Kempire, who also was a psychology major, summa cum laude. Thank you very much. We had Miss Jetty McCrae, also a psychology major, pop culture expert. We had a robust conversation, but what we didn't hit on, and we're going to get a chance to hit on today, is the legal aspects, okay, of the age gap. Is she fast or was she groomed? And even since this guest, who I'm about to tell you who she is, I'm so excited. Even since we had our initial conversation, now we have more news. And it's what we talked about with David, D4VD, who was arrested for first-degree taking of the life of the young Celeste, whom he started interacting with at least at some reports as early as 11 years old, when she was 11 and he was 17, certainly by the time she was 12 and he was an adult at 18. And it has been reported, alleged, that they started having physical, intimate, romantic contact when she was 13. And now, of course, you've heard the story that she was found in the front of his Tesla. And even still, you have people asking the question, well, what did she do? Or why she kept running away? Or where were her parents? Or she's fast. Is she fast or was she groomed? Let's get into some of these age gap topics with our guest, Miss Areva Martin. Welcome. How are you doing?
I am fantastic. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you so much for lifting up this really, really important conversation. We cannot talk about this enough. There's been a lot of conversations happening on the internet, particularly after the arrest and charge of David Burke, which is the name of this singer. But I don't think we spend nearly enough time in the media, on television, talking about this, because the reality is when these conversations come up, you still have people coming to the defense of these guys. And even like, that's the wrong question. The question isn't anything about her. The question is, what is driving men to kill young women? Particularly, we're talking about women of color. That's the only question. Anything else about her is superfluous. It's misplaced. And it's quite frankly just frustrating that here we are in 2026 still having to remind folks there's no such thing as a young girl being fast. I don't even know what that means. It's some antiquated thing we used to say back in the day. Let's lose it. It has no meaning today, because an 11-year-old girl is just that, developmentally a child, and should be treated like a child. A 16-year-old girl in most states in this country is still considered a child. Even up until the age of 18, you are a child. And so if somebody's having sex with you, they are breaking the law. They are sexually abusing you. And that's what we need to call it.
Absolutely. And Miss Areva Martin, let me just let the people know This is a Harvard educated civil rights attorney. She has been appeared on CNN, where I see you go to work on CNN. I've watched you on HLN. I've seen you on Good Morning America. And beyond being out there, being America's advocate, civil rights attorney, you also have a connection to medicine in that your son is living with autism, and you have been a powerful advocate for autism, which I really, really appreciate you for that. And I know you have at least 2 million followers on Instagram. You have followers around the globe. And if you're not following her, Areva Martin, AREVA MARTIN. It is a treat. And I promise you, you will be enlightened with her content. She's everywhere. You can't miss her. But right now you are here, and we are so happy to have you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. But yes, so this is she fast or is she groomed conversation, I have been shocked because people in my life who I consider to be pretty reasonable or intelligent people have been asking like that wrong question, fast groomed. And so from really the legal aspect, we're dealing with, Brandy being 16 when she and Wanye were intimate. She was 16 and he was 21. And of course, with Celeste being 11 years old. Can you talk a little about age gap, why those age gap laws are in place, and the right questions that we should be asking instead of what does she do? Why is she being grown? Oh, boys will be boys. Oh, he's a young 30. He's a young 20. What is that?
They're designed, Dr. Frita, quite frankly, to protect our young girls, because at that age, and you just talked about all of the incredible board certifications that you have, including in pediatrics, it is because of the developing brain. And I don't care if you develop breast, if you develop a figure, that has nothing to do with your brain development, your ability to make logical choices, reasonable choices. And those laws are designed to prevent predators, older men, mostly men, we're talking about girls and men, from preying on young girls because they may look a certain way. People say she looked older, she acted older. Well, that's not consequential. The real issue is this a child? And at 21, if you're having sex with a 16-year-old, you are committing statutory rape. Full stop, period. And you can be prosecuted in most states in this country for doing so. And we need to stop asking the question about what the girl did and asking, what are these predator men doing to groom our young girls, to lure them in to these sexual relationships that are criminal by definition? And it's so frustrating. The David Berg, Celeste Hernandez started communicating. He was under the age of 18 by all reports, but at some point he became a man and she was still a young girl. She ran away from home. There are video photos of her living or being with him in his apartment, his home, his something. People calling her his girlfriend. Yes. And what the district attorney says is that the murder, alleged murder by him, was to prevent her from coming clean, from reporting the repeated acts of sexual assault on her. So these are serious issues, and we've got to treat them seriously. And we can no longer protect the predators, even when they are in our own community, even when we have people in our own families and text groups and social media groups standing up for these guys. And I want to talk about Justin Fairfax and his wife too, just briefly.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Dr. Frita, someone said on my feed, we don't know what she did to him. Well, guess what? We do know she didn't shoot and kill him. We do know she was in that house taking care of those kids. And we know all of this because of the reports and the orders from the family law judge, because they were going through a contentious divorce. We do know that she didn't shoot him with their teenage children in the home. So we know all we need to know. Now, Justin Fairfax had some issues, but his wife was, by all accounts, holding it down for her family. And she did not deserve to die. She did not deserve to be shot and killed in her own home with her children now left to be traumatized, as you know, for life. So I don't even know, what did she do to him? Nothing that would warrant a death warrant.
nothing, right? And we're seeing a pattern where they're young, where they're old, where there's an age gap. There seems to be a comfortability with blaming the women, in these cases blaming Black women, or a little girl, blaming little girls or little girls of color. People are comfortable. And with the Justin Fairfax case in particular, that's been another one that's been tough to watch, because I follow different people, and I'm sure you've probably seen them, different commentators, different politicians, different lawyers who perhaps were in his fraternity or knew him on a personal level or were proud of him for all of his various levels. And I've heard people come to just talk about him and to mourn him and to say, oh, I wonder what this Black man was going through, instead of looking at the victim, and I'll say victims, the victim, his wife, who is now deceased at his hands, but then understanding that you were taking her and taking both of the parents away from your children. The focus, to me, slipped to him a little too quickly. And so there's a whole lot of psychology involved, especially if you're someone out here living in the patriarchy, I'll say, and wondering, what do you do? What do you say? And how do you defend? I mean, it sounds like she was already doing everything that she needed to do, separating herself, applying for the divorce. What I think a mistake that a lot of women make is that you just don't think that threats that men are making will come true. You just think that, I know he's talking, perhaps he's being violent or violent with his words, but I know that cooler heads will prevail. What can women do, really, in a lot of ways, from a legal standpoint and from a protection standpoint? At what point do you know when to take your partner seriously, if there are any red flags? And what red flags can we look for potential domestic violence and harm, as Justin Fairfax did to his beautiful wife, beautiful, intelligent wife?
Well, it's easy to say, Dr. Frita, when people show you who they are, believe them. But we know statistically it takes women 7 tries to leave an abusive relationship, 7 tries. And it is usually on that 7th try, when they are leaving, that things escalate and they become violent. And we know that Black women in particular die disproportionately at the hands of an intimate partner. So this is a crisis in our community. So if you care about Black women, if you care about Black girls, your daughters, your sisters, your nieces, your cousins, this is an issue that we all should be concerned about. And we did hear some of those fraternity brothers, some of those people that supported Justin Fairfax, talk about how his condition has started to deteriorate. The fact that he was drinking, the fact that he was isolating himself, that he had become obsessed with trying to clear his name from those 2 sexual assault allegations that had been made against him while he was in college. We found out at some point he went and bought a gun, that he purchased a gun. We know his family was involved. There was reports that his mother had to pay his court fees, that he hadn't worked in a long time, that he had no financial resources. So there are signs, and there are things that happen in our community that we often will ignore. A lot of it is just, again, this nonsense about Black folks not having mental health issues, not needing professional mental health counseling, that we can pray everything away, that, we can go to church and that's going to be the be all and end all, that Black people don't kill Black people. Someone just said recently with the guy that attempted to, shoot the Trump administrators at the Correspondents' Dinner over the weekend, there are reports that he's biracial. And someone posted, well, we know that's the white side of him that tried to do that, because Black people don't engage in mass shootings. Where in the world, like, people, please stop. That is like the most ignorant thing I've ever heard. Black people kill people, white people kill people, all people are, there are people who are prone to violence. It doesn't have anything to do with your race. So in these domestic violence situations, I think we have to be more vocal. We see something, we do something. We can't ignore the signs if somebody is deteriorating in the way that this man, who went from this high-performing Columbia University law school graduate, lieutenant governor, successful attorney, they were calling him and his wife, Dr. Serena, the Cosbys, the perfect power couple. And that wasn't the truth. So somebody saw him start to lose it over, they said it was about his reputational loss, about the financial losses, about him losing the election. He ran for governor. So, you have to ask the questions, the tough questions of the family, of the close friends. And not to say that it's their responsibility, you know, people are adults, but if you are witnessing that, are you intervening to the best extent that you can? Are you asking questions? Are you recommending therapy? Are you saying to this person, at some point, you may have to call the authorities. You may have to put this person on a 5150 hold. I mean, that is the reality, to protect them from harming themselves, and in this case, harming others. And we've got to, you know, roll the curtain back in our community in particular and talk about real mental health issues. They exist, and we can't pray them away. We can't, you know, slang them away with, oh, he's crazy. Oh, she's no. Mm-hmm. These are real issues, and you need real professionals like yourself and others to intervene and to help these people. And perhaps if Justin Fairfax, if there had been some kind of mental health intervention for him, maybe he would still be alive, and maybe his wife would be alive, and those two teenagers would not be traumatized for the rest of their lives, having, as you said, lost both their parents. I think about that son. He called 911.
Jesus. You know, and I'm so happy that you're just bringing it to specifically the Black community, because with so many of us, especially those of us who have been able to make strides in our education or in perhaps building generational wealth, I think a lot of us will see ourselves as having to make sure that we represent the community, represent Black people at all times. Don't, you know, tattletale on another Black man. Don't bring another Black man down. We have this loyalty that is misplaced, and in doing so, like in the case of the Fairfaxes, is to the detriment of our Black children or our Black women. And so we do have to just be honest, call a spade, and we need to protect each other, even if it means, or especially when it means taking down the problem. And so, yes, you know, I grew up in the South, in the church. Ooh, just pray it away, just pray it away. Pray, certainly not questioning anyone's religion, but also pray and appreciate the mental health sources that we have. Pray and appreciate the legal ramifications that we have. Pray and appreciate the common sense that you've been given. Don't just pray with inaction. Take action and protect. And speaking of taking action, one thing with this D4VD story, oftentimes people say, where are the parents? Where are the parents? I know that's a layered question. In the case of Celeste Rivas Hernandez, as you know, you talked about, she was seen on videotape leaving, and reportedly Celeste's mother, even when Celeste was 12, 13, said she had a boyfriend named David. Now, of course, if you're 12 and you have a boyfriend who is driving away in a car, already the young man is at least 16 years of age. But in a lot of cases, and I know even for me growing up in high school, I definitely knew of girls who were dating, they would call it, older men, or they would be, you know, 15 years old, and the boyfriends with the nice cars, oftentimes, you know, dealing with illegal substances, will come and pick them up and buy them some Converse shoes, some potato chips in their hairdos. And they thought that they were making, the girls thought that they were making these mature decisions and with men who could buy them a little something. And it felt like everyone knew what was going on, even adults, probably parents, but it was just the culture. And I feel like, especially now with, you know, what Brandy shared, what we see with David and Celeste, it feels like it's still largely part of the culture. What do you say to parents, to teachers, even to peers, as far as what action you can take if you're watching an inappropriate age gap relationship, and quite frankly, a young girl being groomed or taken advantage of? What are some action steps that we can do, that we can take?
Great question, Dr. Frita. And I saw, and I'm sure you did too, a lot of blame being placed, not just on Celeste herself, but on her parents. And I want to put the spotlight on the system, because that family, that girl's mom, did call law enforcement repeatedly to get their assistance. And the reality is, she was a Latino girl from a suburb in Los Angeles, Lake Elsinore. And Black and brown girls do not get the same level of attention when they go missing, when they run away, because of these stereotypes of them being fast and of them somehow, you know, wanting to live this life, and somehow them having the intellectual and developmental maturity to do so. So if that had been a little white girl from Beverly Hills, California, from an affluent family that ran away, and her family was reaching out to law enforcement, I am confident, in having done this for many years, that we would have seen a different result from the safety net, from law enforcement, from the school officials who are also a part of the safety net. So let's be real clear. Yeah, parents have a responsibility to raise their kids and to protect their kids. But also, this is a village assignment. This ain't just for the parents, because sometimes kids do things that the parents can't control either. And they reach out to law enforcement, they reach out to school officials, they reach out to the media. And we all have a role in breaking the way this country treats women of color and making sure that our girls are prioritized and that we dispel this myth that, adultifies our kids. So when something happens to a Black and brown girl, everybody just assumes she wants it.
Right.
She's making a choice that she can make. We talk about our girls differently. We describe them differently. And we've got to acknowledge that is systemic racism and systemic bias that's built into our system. And we can't play into that. So parents, I want you to do everything you can to protect your kids from online predators, because apparently this relationship with the singer started online, an app called Discord, where they first met each other. So we've got to police our children's access to social media, which is why I'm glad these lawsuits are going forward against the big social media companies for not doing enough to protect kids online. So we all have a role to play in this. Law enforcement, when a Black family or a Latino family calls you, take it as seriously as you take a call from a wealthy white family. We may not have in our community the money and resources to hire private detectives and do all the things that wealthy families can do, but that doesn't mean our kids are any less deserving of the same level of protection. So all of us have a role to play when we hear about these horrific stories, because this could be our loved one, this could be a relative, this could be a friend, this could be someone in our own community.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then when you think about the fact that this child had his name reportedly tattooed on a finger he dismembered by the medical examiner's report, by the way, and he had that tattoo, matching tattoos. We now see evidence of her on live streams. This was a baby-faced little girl. It was no secret that she was a child. And it seems like no one really spoke up until it was too late. And even still, can you imagine?
Let me say this too, Dr. Frita. What we're hearing too is that he was originally participating in the investigation, and it got to a point where he realized he needed to have an attorney. They had to convene a grand jury to subpoena his family, because it's not just Celeste's family. David is a young man too. He's got a family. We've heard a lot about him making his music in his sister's closet, and his mother encouraging him to make his music and use his voice. So if Celeste was hanging out with David, where are the people in the entourage, which we know there are entourages that surround these singers? He was on the rise. He was a rising star. He was on tour when they found her body in his Tesla. So his family has not been, according to reports, cooperating with law enforcement, and they have a right to get a lawyer. They have a right to protect themselves in whatever way they choose to. But let's not pretend that there were not other adults, whether it was parents, whether it was managers, agents, publicists, band members, all the people that support any singer, not just him, but anyone that's living, that's on the upcoming, it's on the come up like he was. So we often ask these questions, in the case of Bill Cosby, in the case of Diddy, in the case of R. Kelly, Harvey Weinstein, we just do a roll call. There are people, they ain't in isolation having sex or, manipulating or abusing, whether it's girls or women. They are doing this in plain sight. So also, I want to speak to those people. If you are in those entourages, and we often hear people say, well, I don't want to mess up my money. I wasn't trying to, call the police or call the authorities, because it's a cash cow, right? If that person goes down, if that celebrity goes down, then all of those people that depend on that celebrity. But guess what? We're talking about the life of a child. We're talking about the lives of women. We're talking about Cassie Ventura, who we watch get beat on that video. So I would like to think that you are so talented, and that person chose you because you have talent, and you can go work someplace else. And even if it means Walmart, I think you prefer working at Walmart than having on your conscience that someone was beat, raped, or killed, and you didn't do anything about it.
And I'm really, this roll call is really eye-opening and sad, because we really could go on and on. Cassie, another woman of color, we watched her with our own eyes being beaten, being kicked, trying to get away. And you still see people, not just men, women as well. Well, why she didn't leave? You saw her try to leave, and still you find the ability to blame the victim. And yes, I believe she was 19, but still there still was an age gap. There still was a power dynamic. And either way, violence against a young woman who, quite frankly, had a power disadvantage. So yes, so I think we agree the word fast, we need to abolish it. And like, what you mentioned about praying away, now I'm taking it all the way back to being at church and wearing clothes that are actually oftentimes quite decent, but the mothers of the church will throw a prayer cloth. If y'all know what a prayer cloth is, throwing prayer cloths over the thighs, the laps of young women, because it's supposed to be our responsibility for the men in the church to
because we can't do anything to provoke them, right?
Right.
Because they have no brains, and they're not taught discernment. They're not taught, boundaries. And it's always something that the woman is doing. We got to reverse that. We have to disrupt that thinking. And you mentioned the word patriarchy. I think I spent every moment of my life fighting the patriarchy. We can think of so many ways that it influences our thinking. And again, not just male thinking, but female thinking too, because we've all been indoctrinated with it. We've all grown up with it. These superior roles, the superior role of the man over the woman, the woman being, submissive to the man, being in many ways inferior to the man, and the woman playing the role or having the responsibility of preventing the man from using violence. You made me do that. You provoked me. And if you did what I told you to do and sat in your little seat and played your little submissive role, then I would not hit you.
Isn't that something? So is she fast, or was she groomed? Fast, we are very quickly going to get rid of that word, and we're going to look at accountability, put it where it is, put it in the hands of adults. We need to protect each other. We need to protect women, specifically Black women, women of color who seem to be somehow invisible or blamed even when they are the victims. So from Brandy with Wanya Morris, which that was a tricky topic because, he's here and so many people start immediately going to legal. Like if they admit that she, as she said, was taken advantage of, does that mean that we need to go and lock Wanya Morris up? That's not the immediate issue that we're speaking of, but as you already said, it is against the law, and the laws are there for a reason, to protect children. And so any other words for our med heads here? And can you please let them know what your something, how they can find you? And I know that you've written books. I know that you have all kinds of keynote speaking engagements. Where's the best way for everyone to keep up with you as you kind of give a
yes, you can follow me on all things social at Areva Martin. That's on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. And the last thought I would have is I have 3 children. I have 2 daughters and a son. And so I would just say to those parents, women and men who are raising sons, we have to do better. We have to do a better job of ensuring that our sons are given the same lessons, taught to respect women, to respect boundaries, that no means no. No doesn't mean, well, maybe. No means no. And we get so many kids caught up. My heart breaks for David. You know why? He's 21 years old. When he got arrested last week, I knew he will probably never, ever see the outside of a jail cell. So look at the lives that are destroyed. So in an effort to protect and surround and hide, you have done nothing but created this incredible tragedy. So here's a 14-year-old girl who's dead, whose family will never be the same. And then here's a family of a young Black man who becomes yet another statistic. Yes. Life, possibly, don't know, hasn't been convicted yet, but the evidence that was presented looks pretty damning. Of course, he says he's not guilty, and he is presumed innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. But if he is convicted, there's a possibility of the death penalty because the DA is charging it a homicide with special circumstances. There's a possibility of life without parole. And he seems like the most talented, gifted, musical, genius. I'll use that word. So if his life is cut short because of this. Yes, if he did it, he needs to be held accountable. That's first and foremost. But look at the devastation and all the lives that are destroyed. So I think it's a wake-up call for our entire community. Our sons need as much love, as much support with this difficult topic as our girls do. So just as we're telling our girls, what to do, what to watch for, we also have to be giving that same parallel message to our sons. And we always hear about, Black families teaching their sons about the police, right? What to do if you're stopped by the police. Let's include in that conversation what to do when you start developing an interest in girls, because that is equally an area. You can get beat up by the police, and we know that's real. So I don't want to minimize that. That's real. But you can also find yourself serving a life sentence in prison because you made a bad choice and didn't respect the boundaries of a girl.
And what you're saying, it all goes back to your original statement, the system. Because I'll be honest, I've only been here rolling my eyes at David. I haven't given him much empathy until this exact moment, because he didn't just wake up and do what was alleged. If he did it, innocent until proven guilty. Standers by watched him on a live stream with a child. They let her into the concert. They watched an underage person get, you're right, an entire system protected him and did not nip it in the bud. And so it's multidimensional, not one way or the other, good versus evil. It is the system largely. And so as individuals.
And mamas, if you see your adult son with a girl,
hello,
call that family, break that up today.
Yes.
Full stop. It ain't happening. You going to jail, you ruining your career, you're ruining your life. I'm not going to stand by and watch that happen. We know Black mamas can do that. So mamas, that's our assignment.
In the end, it's all on the mamas.
Yep.
Shouldn't
get it done. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Frita, for this conversation. So enlightening. Thank you for the work that you do. Thank you for lifting up these challenging and difficult topics. Not easy to do, but so important and so necessary for our community.
Thank you. I appreciate you. And we'll put a link for your social media and contact in the description. So for anyone who joins or anyone in the replay, you will still be able to follow Miss Areva Martin, our America's advocate, Harvard educated civil rights attorney extraordinaire. Thank you.
All right. Be well, my friend.
All right. Was that a treat or was that a treat? This conversation just keeps going, doesn't it? And that's what I really love about this platform, where we don't just talk about just black and white, kidney, heart, cholesterol. We do talk about that, but medicine, psychology, even what's going on in the political forefront, our systems, it all matters. And quite honestly, so many of the things that are going on in the headlines affect us as far as stress. And we know that stress is real. It causes an increase in cortisol. It causes blood vessels to tighten. It causes an increase in blood pressure, increase in the risk for cardiovascular disease. And so it is all connected. So make sure you follow Miss Areva Martin. I guarantee you will be enlightened through and through. All right. So now let's go ahead and jump right back in and let's talk about RFK Jr. I mentioned that he was talking about overthrowing the United States Preventive Services Task Force. We're going to play a clip. But first, let me just tell you a little bit about the United States Preventive Services Task Force. Again, it's responsible for giving evidence-based medical recommendations on things like cancer screening, so your colonoscopies, your mammograms, and insurance companies pay attention. If you don't have the United States Preventive Services Task Force giving their gold stamp, then there's a great chance that insurance companies won't cover some things that we get done, some tests we get done, like our mammograms, like our colonoscopies. So we'll play this clip, but I have this question for you, med heads, and I want you to put, what I want you to put? I want you to put a little doctor emoji. Give me a doctor emoji in the chat and answer this question. If RFK Jr. is successful in overthrowing the United States Preventive Services Task Force and really replacing them with some of his own people, and let's just say they start to decrease the screenings like colonoscopies and mammograms, if they start to decrease insurance coverage, will that affect whether or not you get your mammograms and colonoscopies? If they're no longer covered by insurance, will that affect whether or not you get them? Please put that in the chat, and let's go ahead and play this clip of RFK Jr.
I'd like to talk about prevention. Last week, you said that screening for prevention is absolutely critical. So I want to dig into that. I agree with that. Let's start with mammograms. Would you agree that mammograms are important preventative healthcare?
Yes.
Absolutely. I agree with that too. So it makes me wonder why your agency cut the programs that fund breast cancer screenings. Hospitals in my neighboring states of South Dakota and North Dakota actually had to pause breast cancer screenings because your agency announced cuts to the National Breast and Cervical Cancer Early Detection Programs. It doesn't make any sense to me. Let's try another one. Is depression screening preventative care in your mind?
And depression?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. I agree with that too. However, the Trump administration and congressional Republicans pushed through the biggest cuts to Medicaid in the history of that program. And Medicaid is the largest payer of behavioral health care. How about smoking? Is smoking cessation, preventative care?
Yes.
Okay. So again, your latest budget eliminates the CDC's Office for Smoking on Smoking and Health, and 200 CDC employees who were working on smoking cessation are gone now. The flu shot, is the flu shot preventative care?
Yes.
Okay, so you said that it would be better if fewer kids got the flu shot. You've rescinded recommendations for scientifically and medically sound flu vaccines. You've canceled public awareness campaigns about the importance of getting the flu vaccine. I mean, this is not a record that matches with saying that preventative care is important. I do not understand the contrast here between what you say you want to do and what is actually happening in this administration.
It goes on and on and on. And so I definitely want to see what you all say. If cuts are made to things like cancer screenings, will you still get the cancer screenings regardless? But in keeping with RFK Jr. and some of the hearings he's had, and please make sure that you check me out. And yes, make sure you give us a like right here on this video and share it in your group me, share it in your email. Replay crew, please, I want you to share as well, because as you can see, we have robust medical information and civil rights information and ways to protect ourselves, our health, our mental wellness, all of it. So please give us a like. I appreciate you for it. And as far as RFK Jr., he also was questioned by Representative Terry Sewell, who reminded him, because apparently he forgot, that he once stated on a podcast just in 2024 that he said every Black child is now automatically thrown on ADHD medications like benzodiazepines and Adderall. He said this, and he didn't say most, he didn't say some, he said every Black child. And so RFK Jr. also said, and this is documented, when you follow me on other social media platforms, because I definitely did a post on it, I also do shorts here as well. RFK Jr. also said that given this, that every Black child is automatically thrown on ADHD medications, he said that every Black child should be removed from their homes and placed in wellness forums where they can be reparented. He made that statement. He denied it. He said it. And then he was also questioned by Representative Kim Schreier about the vitamin K injection. And she shared a fact, which is that, so the vitamin K injection is something that is recommended by the FDA actually, and has been recommended since 1961 by the American Academy of Pediatrics. It's an injection given to newborns at birth, and it prevents catastrophic bleeds like brain bleeds because newborns don't have a lot of vitamin K. Well, according to Representative Kim Schreier, she calls it the RFK Jr. spillover effect, I believe, because he has sown so much distrust in vaccines. A lot of moms are refusing the vitamin K injection. And so when she asks him this question in the hearing, he's like, "You're saying hepatitis B?" She's like, "No, I'm saying vitamin K." He's like, "You're talking about hepatitis B?" She's like, "No, vitamin K." So it's clear RFK Jr., though he's the head of Health and Human Services, he's not a doctor, he's not a nurse, he's not in health, he doesn't have a basic understanding. But all she asked him to do was recommend the vitamin K injection to keep from preventing bleeds, and he wasn't able to do that. I say that to say, I want you all to be very careful. And for those of you who are here supporting us here on the Dr. Frita channel, where we now have over 981,000 subscribers, by the way. Thank you very much. If you're not a subscriber, come on, help us get to 1 million. But you all already have, I know, a certain respect for medical knowledge, a certain respect for evidence. Please make sure you share this information with others, because you have some people who, because RFK Jr. is in his position of leadership, will automatically follow because, well, quite frankly, a lot of times they don't know what else to do. So make sure you share this information. And to my med heads out there, if, for example, mammograms aren't covered the same, colonoscopies, do you honestly think that you'll still get your screenings? What say you? Anyone, Shadora?
Hey, yes, Dr. Frida. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Mr. B,
Oh, you
I
sound
hope
pretty
it's better for you. Need some work on the back end. All right. Miss Rosalind.
Hi, Miss Rosalind.
She says, yes, I would, because early detection saved lives like me. Cancer survivor as of 2011. Congratulations.
Wonderful.
On that.
Congratulations for being a survivor. Oh, we should have Beyonce Destiny Child song playing. Wonderful.
Peace Oasis says it would depend on the cost, but would definitely be a barrier to a lot of people. I would get them if I could.
Keep it real, Peace Oasis. And that's the fact of the matter is. That's the fact of the matter. Many of us don't even know how much a mammogram costs or a colonoscopy because they're covered. Doctor says you should get them. And for those of us here who really do care and make an effort to protect our health, we get them done. But what if you are living on a fixed income, or if you just are pretty much living paycheck to paycheck, especially how so many of us are living now, as you ride by QT, ride by BP, ride by Citgo, and you see the gas prices up in the sky every day. What if you honestly cannot afford to eat and to put gas in your car and pay for a test that might be thousands of dollars? So I guess really, Peace Oasis, it's hard to answer that question until you know the cost, because even though you might want to get the screenings that you know that you should be getting or that are recommended for your health, it could be a barrier to many people who just don't have the money to do so. So it's a dangerous game that RFK Jr. is playing by potentially changing or overthrowing the USP, the United States Preventive Services Task Force. Thank you, Peace Oasis.
Absolutely. Miss Yolanda, hi.
Hi, Miss Yolanda.
She says, yes, it will definitely stop preventive care.
See, it could be a money thing, right? Not that you don't want to take care of yourself, but I hope, you know what, y'all share this with RFK Jr. I know I stay tussling with him, but sometimes I wonder does he really lack knowledge? Does he just not care? He definitely makes statements that are anti-Black, to be frank, like taking every Black child and putting him in a wellness farm to be reparented. But does he really understand how catastrophic it would be to take away this evidence-based medical team? But you know what? We've already seen it, right? When he first went to office, he actually, for the people who were in the ACIP, the group that actually oversaw immunization practices, he really did fire all people, 17, I believe, and replace them with his own people, many of whom were anti-vax. So he's already done it before. He's shown us what he will do. I just really am looking to the good folks on Capitol Hill to protect our health. All right, anyone else?
Yes, member Ms. Sheila.
Hi, thank you for being a member, Ms. Sheila.
She says, I will still get my checkups regardless.
So you say you'll figure it out, make whatever sacrifices, and I'm thankful that you're able to do it. I'm sure you're also recognizing that not everyone has the knowledge or the understanding of the importance of it and the health being well, and some honestly just don't have the wealth. That's just the reality. But yeah.
And then Tisha.
Hi, Tisha.
She's like, excuse me, yes, I would still get the screenings. Early detection has saved so many lives.
It really has. It really has. Just like with that member who shared. And Shador, we have countless stories of people who are breast cancer survivors, prostate cancer survivors, colon cancer survivors, multiple myeloma survivors. And it goes on and on. But largely, many of those screenings and much of that care, it's due to the fact that services like the United States Preventive Services Task Force, it's because they put in the work, they give us the evidence, and insurance companies listen to them. And let's just be honest, being an insurance company is a business. If they have a reason or an excuse not to cover something because now all of a sudden you no longer have the evidence-based medicine, y'all know what kind of world we're living in. Y'all know about capitalism. It is not an exaggeration to say that some of these tests might not be covered. I hope not. I'll keep you posted. Make sure that y'all vote. Oh, y'all, in Georgia, our early voting starts today. I will be voting. Make sure you vote. I don't care if you are, I do care. But even if you are disillusioned, even if you feel like, oh, my vote doesn't matter, even if you're tired, even if your feet hurt, go vote, okay? Your voice matters. These margins can be tight. I'm in Georgia. Early voting starts today. I'm going to be voting, and just check me out. I'm putting it on Instagram. I put it on all my social media platforms once I vote, because I'm a Georgia voter. And if you're a Georgia voter, make sure you vote and go ahead and look it up. I believe vote.org, vote.org is a place to find out when it's time for you to vote wherever you live in the United States. Okay. All right. Back to business. Y'all, please make sure you give us a like, give us a subscribe, and we're going to get into another story, maybe one more story. And then I want y'all to put in the chat. I'll mention the other stories that I didn't quite get to, and let me know if you want me to do some short form content, and I will on those. But for this one, I want to talk about the Florida IVF mix up. Oh my gosh. Yes. In vitro fertilization. There is a wonderful couple. They look like a perfectly nice, happy, loving couple, nice little white pair, nice little white family. And they went through IVF. And for those of you who know anything about IVF, you know that it's extremely expensive, not just financially, but also emotionally, in the toll that it takes on the body, taking hormones, the emotional toll on the family. It strains relationships, and people are really making an ultimate sacrifice to have a baby. Well, they were blessed with a baby. They had IVF, this beautiful little couple, and that baby is a beautiful baby, and that baby is a Black baby, and that baby doesn't look anything like them genetically, and now it's been confirmed that it's not their baby. Yeah, the IVF company made a mix-up. And so we're going to play this clip, but I want you to put in the chat and give me a little baby emoji. If you're someone who's even thinking about IVF, is this something that would totally make you distrust the system? Or what kind of questions or steps would you take to make sure that you don't experience an IVF mix-up? Give me a baby emoji.
Two people now know they are the biological parents of the baby at the center of a Central Florida IVF mix-up case. Good evening. I'm Greg Wormuth.
I'm Martha Sagowski. This is the biggest break yet in a story that has been making headlines all across the country. This couple gave birth to the baby in December, and that's when they learned the baby girl has no genetic relationship to them. They are currently suing the Seminole County fertility clinic that implanted the wrong embryo in their IVF process. Channel 9's Asha Webb live outside of the fertility clinic where this all began.
And Ashlyn, you also spoke with the attorney for the baby girl's biological parents tonight.
Yes, and the attorney told me that his clients are just learning about this and are really processing the reality that a child of theirs biologically exists, but is with another set of parents. He says they are really going through all of their options tonight. We also heard from the birth parents who say this is just one chapter closed of a very difficult journey.
Nearly 5 months after Stephen Mills and Tiffany Score brought their baby girl into the world, the Central Florida couple finally learned who the biological parents are. The couple's attorney told Channel 9 the results of testing delivered to them Tuesday confirmed the baby's genetic parents. He says their identities will remain confidential. Mills and Score received IVF treatment here at the fertility clinic of Orlando. Earlier court filings suggest the embryo may have been mislabeled in 2020, or that the wrong embryo was used during the transfer procedure last April.
Can you believe it? Beautiful couple, beautiful baby. And it sounds like they're very loving to the baby. Of course, she carried the baby, she bonded with the baby. But let's just be frank. When she went there, she spent her emotional capital, her financial capital, the couple spending their financial capital, and they were blessed with the baby, and genetically that's not their baby. And so I want you to know, put a baby in the chat. I don't know if anyone answered. Would this make you just be like, forget it, I will never do IVF? Will it make you take certain steps? And also, y'all can add this too, put more babies in the emojis. What do you think should happen if the genetic couple, if they want that little baby, should they automatically be granted the baby? And or should the couple, the nice white couple we saw, if they choose to keep the baby, and they carried the baby, even if it's not their genetic baby, should they be allowed? This is really complex, isn't it? All right, I'm curious. Medheads, y'all always have something to say. What do you say?
Eunice, Dr. Frita had a good question. Hi, Eunice.
Hi, Eunice.
Eunice says, "What happened to the baby? To the baby is difficult. Does it go with the parent that carried the child, or the biological? And who should they pay the couple? So should the biological parents pay the couple for, I guess, going through that process as well?"
Absolutely not the biological parents. Now I can go ahead and answer that. And listen, I'm nobody's lawyer or judge, but the biological, I'll say genetic, the genetic parents of that baby had nothing to do with the mix-up. So we know that they're not going to be financially responsible. And the couple is not suing the genetic parents. They're suing the actual IVF office, the IVF practice, because they're the ones who made the mix-up. But this is not a case. And if there's any lawyers in the chat or any lawyers in replay, I'll really be curious, because legally, I just don't know. I'm just sitting here thinking, let's just say, gosh, if I had an embryo and it's somewhere frozen, I might be minding my own business, very grown, almost with an empty nest. But if I find out that my genetic child, even though God bless that couple, they had the baby, they bonded with the baby, they've been raising that baby for 5 months. At this point, that they're the only parents that baby knows. I'm just being honest. I would want my baby. Is that fair to the couple? I can't say, but I would want my baby. And then let me just flip it the other way. If I carried a baby and then I'm sitting here looking for a baby who looks like me, and then I have a lovely blonde hair, blue-eyed, sweet little baby that I've carried and that I've raised for 5 months. Shoot, that's my baby. I want to keep my baby. So what is the right answer? I don't know. Does someone have some better insight than I? Because y'all see where I'm going with it. Just give me the baby. I don't even care. Who should have the baby?
Miss Aileen, hey.
Miss Aileen.
She says, "I believe they should give the baby back to the biological parent."
What if the parents don't want the baby? Because they said this mix-up could have happened, 2020, 2022. What if those parents went through the IVF, they have the 3 kids that they want, they're financially exactly where they want to be, and now they are 56 years old, they're retiring, they have their whole life planned. What if they don't want the baby? Yeah, I think my thoughts are, if the genetic parents actually want the baby, then I really do think they probably have a dog in the fight. I don't know legally. So please, I really hope some folks either here, if you're here, or any lawyers in the replay crew, please let us know.
Okay.
But yeah, what if they don't want the baby?
That's true. Beth says, I'll still do the IVF. Biological parents should get their child if the white couple wants visitation out granted.
Oh, that's interesting. So allowing them to have a relationship, since she's carried the child and they've raised the child, and we actually don't know if they want to keep this child or if they would be open to, if the genetic parents want the child back, because they might both be on the same page. And perhaps this family really does want their own genetic child, which is reasonable. And perhaps after they finish suing this IVF practice, and they will win, they will get a huge settlement, I'm quite sure. Do they go somewhere else and really, hope that they're still able to have their own genetic baby? Oh gosh, this is pretty complex. What else did y'all say? Yeah, y'all know I like to be a know-it-all and have the answers. I really don't have the answer here, except for that I want all the babies. I want that baby.
Zeru, hello.
Hi.
Says, in my opinion, the case should be guided carefully by psychologists to help both parties suss out their many understandable emotions.
Now I definitely agree with you. Just the way I'm sitting here flip-flopping, I'm not even in it directly. I can only imagine. All I can say is really God bless that couple, because they raised that baby for 5 months, and they even said, they love her. That's their baby. They just seem like a really loving, reasonable couple who has been put through an unnecessary emotional trauma. But just in general, healthcare system, healthcare people, practices, please, can we be more careful? Can we label accurately and be honest? Because I feel like someone mislabeled, and they knew that there was a chance they mislabeled, but they just went ahead and took a chance, and now they literally have played with several lives.
Absolutely. And one more,
All
Dr.
right.
This is from Ms. VE. Hey,
Hi,
Miss
Ms. VE.
Lady. She says a difficult decision, but the baby should be given to the biological parents. On the hand, what happens if the lady is unable to conceive again?
See, that's the piece. What if she has her own embryos and it doesn't work, but things happen where her body, her uterus, her lining, if everything was just right at this exact moment in time. Yeah, I think probably the majority of y'all are saying if the genetic parents want the baby should go to the genetic parents. But we don't know the nuances and if they want the baby, or if, look, they might be a couple that split up, they might not be able to take care of it. We don't even know. So let's keep an eye on the story, and we'll definitely follow back up with it. And speaking of stories, we did have a couple of other stories, but one of them was Carrie Ann Inaba, who is a judge Dancing with the Stars, living with an invisible disability. And we were going to do myth versus fact when it comes to Sjogren's disease. I want y'all to put in the chat, just put in all capital letters, Sjogren's. Don't ask me how to spell it. Sjogren's. There might even be an umlaut on top of the O, child. But put Sjogren's in the chat if you want me to circle back and do some short form content, and I'll post it on all social media platforms. But basically, she's talking about how even though she, looks great, looks fine, looks healthy, you can't look at her and tell she had an incident where she was on an airplane, body went numb, and really had an emergency due to this disability. And so understanding that all disabilities aren't obvious. And when you see people rolling up in a handicap, as they call it, or disabilities parking space, please don't be looking and judging just because they pop out looking healthy. All disabilities are not obvious. Y'all remember that. Okay, and stop being a little judgmental folks. Judge you, was a bear. But yeah, put Sjogren's if you want me to circle back and do some short form content, and I will. And then for the psychedelics, oh gosh, y'all, why do RFK Jr. and Donald Trump keep me just tussling and fighting? I'm a lover, not a fighter, but I'll go ahead and fight to live another day. For this story, I'm going to put it in, it might already be here, in my TV playlist. Yeah, I think it is, in the television playlist right here on the YouTube channel. I was actually on Don Lemon, and I did a whole segment with him, a lemon drop segment, talking about the podcaster who had this great idea about a drug, a psychedelic that should be used to treat certain things like depression. And he said that Trump texted him, "Hey, you want me to go ahead and get this approved by the FDA?" Said it in a real casual, cavalier kind of a situation. And so I definitely want to talk about the importance of going through the proper steps before a drug gets FDA approved. And very specifically, I can talk to you about this drug that they're talking about potentially getting fast tracked. And so put what I want you to put. If you want me to do a short form comment on this one, then put psych, PSYCH, put psych. And I'll go back and then just put your notifications on, and you'll be able to see when I do the short form content if y'all want to hear those topics. Well, I certainly thank you all for joining us. I hope you enjoyed our special treat, Miss Areva Martin. She is a wealth of knowledge, and I hope that you got something out of that conversation as I did, and that you can take the conversation, share it with others. Again, please be sure that you like us, give us a subscribe, give us a follow. I have another great video coming out. I love the video that I released last week, urine, what your urine color is desperately trying to tell you about your kidney function. I'm telling you, watch that video and share it. It has some priceless information on how, just looking back at it, well, I guess depending on how you use the restroom, look and see what your body puts in the restroom. Look at your urine, because the urine color definitely tells you about your kidney health. That's important. And then I have another video coming up. I'm also excited about this one because listen, when y'all are out here trying to be healthy and you're eating salads, do you know that some of these salads have more ultra processed foods, more salt, more potassium, more phosphorus? Some of these salads are less healthy than a burger and fries. And I'm not exaggerating. And so I give you the 5 worst salads you can eat if you have high blood pressure and or kidney disease. And I'm telling you, y'all gonna be mad at me. You're gonna be mad at me because you thought you were being healthy and you probably weren't. But just stay tuned, put your notifications on. We'll talk about that. And make sure, as always, go to my one-stop shop, drfrita.com. Please purchase my book, Under Pressure, A Guide to Controlling High Blood Pressure, where, of course, I am a board-certified kidney and high blood pressure doctor, so I give you traditional ways to manage your blood pressure, but I also talk about natural, holistic ways using food as medicine. And, if you enjoy talking to me in this platform like I do, but you want to talk to me one-on-one, I do have a telehealth concierge service. So make sure you go ahead and book an appointment there where I can talk to you, from anywhere in the world. And I have a freebie for you. Y'all know y'all like free 99. I know I do. Make sure you click the link in the description or go to drfrita.com to download my PDF, 10 Healthy Habits. Oh, I talk about 10 healthy habits for a better you and a better life. These are some of the habits that I use in my everyday life to try to live my healthiest, happiest life. All right, members, I'm about to flip on over and see you in the live members only Q&A. It's not too late. It's not too late. If you're not a member, click the link in the description, become a member, or go to drfrita.com. All right. Thank y'all for joining us here on Dr. Frita Live, and thank you for making Monday your healthiest day of the week.